on June 27th of 2021. You called me and asked me if I would come meet you at the Office Tavern for lunch.
Yes, you did.
And I thought, this is
I did.
different, even though we got together all the time.
Right.
But I knew my intuition.
Yeah.
In fact, I knew walking in the door, my intuition was he's going to ask me to come work at Peerless.
Yeah.
And he did that day.
Chris Hembrough, welcome to the other side of the table.
I would say it's good to be here, but I'm not so sure it's going to be good to be here.
Oh yeah, Matt and I are going to gang up on you today. So I bring in my backup junior.
That won't make it any different than any other day.
That's true. That's for sure.
Yeah. So people have to be wondering, why in the world are we talking to you or interviewing you? And I think that we have a pretty compelling story, you and I. And I met you 20 years ago. And at Panther Creek, of all places, upstairs having a cocktail with Cass Casper.
Yes,
So
I remember.
Would you like to tell me your version of how that transpired?
I will share my version of the story, which is the correct version.
Because that's the most important one, your version of the story.
Right? Yeah, so it always is. I mean, never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Right, exactly.
So anyway, I remember like it was yesterday. I was sitting there. Whoever I had played golf with that day had just left. I was sitting there finishing up a drink, and all of a sudden I see this guy walking across the bar, and I'm like, "Who is this guy?" And in my head, and what does he want? Because I could tell he was coming to talk to me. And he introduces himself, says, "I'm Brad Wyck, I own Peerless," and he says, I understand you just took over a dry cleaning business here in Springfield that had a bad note that was in foreclosure. And he said, you probably have no idea, but you're bleeding cash right now as you sit here.
Because the dry cleaning industry was starting its downturn at that point.
Even 20 years ago. That was June of 2003.
Yes.
And the world was already getting a lot more casual.
Yeah.
And pretty quickly, I had been in it about 6 months, I was starting to see that. And thought, well, this maybe wasn't such a good idea. Anyway, he gives me his business card and he says, hey, if I can ever do anything for you, if you want to come over and visit our dry cleaning plant, if you need to talk with our maintenance folks who can come help you out in your plant about a steam trap. And I'm like, what is that? I didn't even know yet what it was. And so on and so forth. And I said, okay, great. Yeah, sure. I'll take it. And I just kind of blew him off.
Yeah.
And, or at least he will say I did.
Oh, you did blow me off.
I did. Because I didn't know who he was. And I was skeptical. So I was like, who is he and what does he really want? So I don't know, maybe 4 to 6 weeks later, I'm digging around like, that guy was right. And I finally find his card, and I call him. I said, hey, when can I come over and we can sit down?
And I was like, boy, I've been waiting for this call.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. You know him, never miss a moment to pile on.
Oh, never. It's
I mean, when you're in pain, let's jump on board.
Oh,
exactly.
Yep.
So that's how we met. And you may say this, I agree with what Brad says all the time, that I don't believe any of our paths cross out of coincidence. And from that day forward, we started to build a friendship.
Thick as thieves for 20 years.
Yeah.
And and just have had a lot of fun over the years, and a lot of it though helping other people too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll talk about what you did in your career, but I mean, we've I guess partnered and worked together a lot, from strategic planning of Big Brothers Big Sisters, when you first came out of chamber, stuff like that. But then once we really started hanging out and getting to know each other, he invited me to a Big Brothers Big Sisters golf outing. Once you got the business sold, this was maybe a year or so, 2 years.
Yeah, that was about 2008. I think, if I remember correctly.
And so I played down there, and where was that at the?
I think it was St. Albans and St. Louis.
Yes.
So we did a traveling golf tournament every year. As a fundraiser for Big Brothers Big Sisters, as Brad just mentioned. I think it was August of 2008. I sold the business. And I believe the bank was happy. We never missed a payment, and they were missing a lot of them before I showed up there. We found a way to navigate ourselves through that. Your dad wouldn't buy the business from me, although I made him multiple offers to sell it. But I invited him to come play in a golf outing with us.
And before I go down that road, because I was going to tell the J. Cole story, but bring it down a little bit.
Oh yeah.
But so Chris, obviously Chief Operating Officer for a company, and you've been here how long now? 2 years?
A little over 2 years.
A little over 2 years.
Pretty much does it all.
Yep.
Maybe I don't know.
And when
about
we
that.
get there, when we get to the part about you coming on board, we'll talk about your job description.
Okay. Sounds good.
But tell us a little bit about, I know you played football at Miami, won a national championship in '83 for Howard Schnellenberger. And then after that, moved out east to start a church, which I don't think a lot of people know for sure.
Right.
And then talk a little bit, if you don't mind, because I know you don't love talking about the national championship stuff and all that, but, what you learned on the gridiron, or what you learned through team sports, or what you learned from your coaches that you now bring into your leadership dynamic or paradigm when you're leading other people.
Yeah, sure.
Because it all ties together, I think.
Yeah. Well, again, I do appreciate being on. I'm not sure I want to talk about all this stuff, but I will since you asked me to.
I know it makes you uncomfortable, which is even better.
Yeah. I grew up here in Springfield, born in Jacksonville. We moved over here when I was 9 or 10 years old, and went to Griffin High School, played football there. Had 3 brothers. All of us happened to be fortunate enough to play Division I college football,
which is impressive. Yeah.
And I went to the University of Miami partly because my older brother Jeff was at Illinois State, and I almost went to Illinois State, but he was so good that I was tired of always trying to fill his shoes. To be quite honest with you, he was an All-American there, and I was like, I'm not going to follow in his shoes again. So,
that's awesome.
And Howard Schnellenberger was our head coach, and a lot of folks don't know it. Miami football had been so poor for the previous 20 years that they had considered dropping football altogether in the late 70s, and they hired him. They said, let's try one more coach, and he was the offensive coordinator for the Dolphins, the team that went the only team that went undefeated.
Oh, he was. I didn't realize that.
1972.
Yeah.
So they hired him, and he was a very visionary leader. And he walked in the door and said, when he first started in 1979, said, we'll win a national championship in 5 years.
Wow.
And I remember him sitting in our living room and saying the same thing, and it was pretty compelling.
Yeah.
And I thought,
I bet.
with some of the other folks that were recruiting me, I was like, I may go to some of these other places and never see the field. Sure. Yeah. I think I may get a shot to get on the field some at Miami because they were starting to build something. And so got redshirted early on, and then in 1983, which was really supposed to be a rebuilding year because Jim Kelly had been our quarterback the 2 years before that. He had since graduated and been drafted, and a guy named Bernie Kosar was a redshirt freshman quarterback.
Both pretty good quarterbacks.
Yeah, not too bad. And then Vinny Testaverde happened to be on the bench behind Bernie. Anyway, that season played out differently, I think, than a lot of folks thought it would, other than the guys in the locker room and the head coach and the staff that was leading that team. And ultimately, we ended up in the Orange Bowl playing against Nebraska, who at the time it was called the greatest team in college history. They had won every game by an average of 52 points that season. And I think we were like, I don't know, 11 or 13-point underdogs.
Holy cow.
You guys were both undefeated going into that
We
game?
lost our first game of the year at Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
And then we won 10 in a row, I guess it would have been.
Yeah.
So
tell the one story about Wilbur Marshall. I think this is awesome because when you play at that level, a lot of people don't understand what that's like.
Yeah, well, there's so many great players.
The Hall of
right?
Fame. I don't know if he's a Hall of Fame linebacker for the Bears, but he was amazing on the '85 team.
Yeah, and first time I played in a game, and you're a nervous wreck, right? On the road,
and Florida.
The ball snapped, and I go to block this guy in front of me, and next thing I know, he's like not even there, and I'm like, uh-oh. First thought was that's not going to look good on film, because everything we did was on film from the second we walked out of the locker room. For practice, let alone games.
And those are the plays you watch 20 times, not one time.
Well, of course they are. And they save the part about Hembrough till the very last run of the play. But anyway, but that's the stuff that, makes you grow, and makes you tougher, and makes you better. Anyway, so not fun at the moment, but a ball to look back at.
That's awesome.
Anyway, so we lost that opener. On the road, and then we won the rest of our games, and then we jumped out in front of those guys at Nebraska 14-0 before they even knew what happened. Wow. And then they came back and tied the game, I think at 17, and we were up 31-24. They scored a touchdown with about a minute and a half to go.
Oh, man.
And that was before overtime in college football.
Oh.
So they could have kicked an extra point and it would have been a tie game. And they probably would have won the title because they were undefeated.
Oh, yeah.
But they decided to go for 2.
Oh, I didn't know
which any competitor would do. I've had people to this day still say, I can't believe Tom Osborne went for 2.
Yeah.
We don't play the game to tie the game. We play the game to win the game.
Yeah.
Right.
So they went for 2, and we stopped them and won the championship.
That's awesome.
Yeah, great memories, ton of fun.
And you didn't you just go down for your 40-year reunion of that national championship?
Yes.
What was that like?
Yeah, remind me of how old I am, please.
Yeah, 40 years. But didn't you have a lot of guys come back?
Yeah, in September, they had a 40-year anniversary of that, which was the first national championship team in 1983.
Yeah.
So if I remember my numbers correctly, it was either 73 or 75 players off a 95-man roster came back to the reunion, which was awesome. I saw guys I hadn't seen in 40 years.
I can only imagine what a metal detector would sound like if all you guys walking through the doors with all
know what it sounds like when I go through. Multiply that by.
The first time I flew with you, I was like, is there any part of your body that doesn't have metal in it? I'm like, wow. Knee replacement,
everything.
All that. Yeah.
Anyway, so it was an awesome experience. And as we've heard other guests on the table tell us, there are a lot of things that you don't learn in school.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that you learn in other things in life. And I would say my experience over the years in football taught me not everything I know, but taught me about discipline and commitment and stick-to-itiveness, as my dad used to call it, and never quitting, never giving up.
Yep.
I'm not always the sharpest guy in the room, but I've had more than one friend say, "But you will eventually wear somebody down."
Yes, I love it.
That's for sure. That is accurate. Yeah,
that's a good thing.
Yeah, just the discipline of showing up when you don't want to show up.
Yep.
A lot of great life lessons learned there.
And then,
some good lessons learned in the classroom as well.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. And then after Miami, you
I spent some time while I was in college. I was pretty involved with Fellowship of Christian Athletes on campus at that time. Some work with inner city kids at times. Not a lot, but some of that. There was always, for whatever reason, the spirit of wanting to give back a little bit, and then I did some work with middle school and high school students, some youth ministry work for a number of years, and then eventually ended up in up on the East Coast in the Richmond, Virginia area.
Okay.
While there, a group of people who wanted to start a church that at the time was what folks would probably call pretty cutting edge, and it was really a church that was focused on trying to reach a segment of society that really had our slogan, how many churches have a slogan, right? Our slogan was a church for those who've given up on church or never went.
Yeah, which I think is really cool.
So that was, we had a target, just like we have a target audience as a business. We had a target audience. And so it just started with a small group of people, 15 or so of us. And so we worked and did the things. We used a lot of live music. Like we had a band. And
cool.
That did the music and all of our service. It was not, when you walked in, it didn't feel like you were in church. Put it that way. We used a lot of audio visual. Things that churches are using all over today. But
I went to
30 years ago weren't using.
I went to church on Sunday, and I'd never been to a Presbyterian church before. And you walked in, everybody's standing around talking, and you walk into a Catholic church, being raised Catholic, it's dead silence, right? And there's no, and everybody, it was just like everybody's kind of hanging out, waiting for the service to start. It was really like
a different experience,
refreshing.
For sure.
It was refreshing. No, it was awesome. You know? Anyways, go ahead.
So it was, never. Who knew what would happen with it, right? But it took off, and within a couple years, it was almost 2,000 people attending.
Wow,
we started off meeting in a conference room in a hotel. Then we moved into a high school, which we would drag trailers in there at 5 a.m. every Sunday and set the auditorium up and classrooms up for kids. And
that's pretty cool.
About 7 years later, we bought 23 or 4 acres of property and built a multi-million-dollar facility.
Man,
that's awesome. So I was there about 7.5 years, and then had some health issues in the family that really brought me back here.
Yeah.
That needed attention. And so that's when I ended up back here. And 6 months later, our paths crossed.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty cool.
That's kind of a quick
And then after the dry cleaning business, I think you had that for a couple of years. Is that correct?
About 5, a little over 5,
okay,
almost 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after that,
after that, again, that work with kids, still had an appeal to give back. And Big Brothers Big Sisters is an awesome organization nationwide. I would say that at the time, which was 2007, at a certain point, I actually still owned the business and had somebody running the day-to-day operation, and was there for about a year because I was in negotiation with somebody to sell it. But at that time, the kids that we served 1,000 kids at one point each year in one-on-one mentoring relationships. But 88% of them lived below the poverty line and came from a single-parent household. So they needed a lot of kids who needed mentors and needed guidance in their lives, and those are all volunteers who did that, as you well knew, because at some point at Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I would say this is also a time where we really got to know each other from maybe a business perspective. I asked Brad if you would serve on our board, and maybe you want to share some of the details of your response.
Well,
to
I
that.
had been on a few boards and witnessed some things, and not just with the boards I was on, but just in the community when you see non-for-profits and how they're run. And I didn't feel like the donor dollars were always being efficiently used for the programs that we were being hired to support. It was maybe for more money for administrative, those kind of things. And I specifically remember telling you, if non-for-profits were run more like a business, I would be willing to help, But I gave you a book called The Rockefeller Habits, and I said, and I'm thinking he's not going to read it, But this goes back to what he says, what he learned from football, the stick-to-itiveness, your word's your bond. You say he's going to do something, he's going to do it. So I said, you read this, and you let me know when you're done reading it if you have any questions, because I think there's a lot of principles in this book that could apply to running a non-for-profit. I think it was 2 days later. It took me a year to read it. 2 days later, he calls me and goes, I need to have a meeting with you about this book. And I get those offers. He's got a yellow legal pad with like 10 pages of notes and questions. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Which still has that legal pad floating around, by the way.
Maybe not the same one.
Maybe it's different.
There's always a legal pad
so I was like,
within reach.
Be careful, what you wish for, or, put your money where my. So I was like, okay, I'm in. Let's do this thing. And then we did our first strategic plan there. Yeah, it was awesome.
Some great memories. He made me sit in the back of the room. He's like,
I said, you can't talk. I said, because this is about the organization's plan, not your plan. Right. And you know how hard that was for him.
He made me sit in the back of the room for 2 days, and I couldn't say a word.
Not one word?
Until the very end.
No, not the very end.
I kind of could nod and agree. That's about all I could do.
And that's really where my respect level for you and our relationship, certainly deepened, at least on my end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it was mutual. And there were some fun years. With Brad on the board and the other group of folks that were part of that board.
You ran an amazing organization, some great things. I mean, when you brought Lynn Swan in, I mean, those golf outings raised a ton of money.
Yeah, we raised a lot of money.
A lot of money. And you were very diligent. You went out and you met with business owners, and you did the work. So it was impressive.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It was.
And then after Big Brothers.
Yeah, I had been there about 7 years, and a couple of folks approached me because this president CEO position at the Chamber of Commerce was open. They said, "Hey, we've seen how you run an organization.
Yeah.
You know a lot of businesses because of the work that you're doing in the community. You own your own business, so you know the stresses and the strains of meeting payroll and all the things that come with it. We think maybe you should throw your hat in the ring." So I said, "Oh, why not?" Because I've always believed the time to consider a new opportunity is when you don't have to.
Sure.
Because then you are not under the stress of needing to make a change.
Sure.
You have a fresh and open mind and heart to consider a change that might be a good fit and it may not.
Sure.
But to me, that's the best time to consider doing something new or something different.
Yeah.
So I said, sure, why not?
Yep.
And to be quite honest with you, I really didn't think that would necessarily pan out.
Sure.
And whatever it was, 2 or 3 months later, I accepted the position to be CEO of the chamber, and
what were some of the things that you think you guys did as an organization? Because I know it wasn't just you, but the folks that you led over there. Some things you're proud of, or maybe left it in a little bit better place than it was when you came on. Anything stand out?
Yeah, when I came on board with the chamber, one of the kind of rallying charges, if you will, we need to have revitalization in our downtown community. We need more downtown housing, and there was a real focus on that. Not because I brought it, but others. It existed. They had just done a downtown housing study, and so on and so forth. So we said, okay, well, if this is really a priority, then let's focus on it until we get it done. And it took a few years, but eventually, working with a developer from out of town, because there weren't any local folks at that time who wanted to engage in that project for varying reasons. Sure. But we found a guy up in the Quad Cities who had done a lot of revitalization projects with older facilities. And so he had really worked hard and understood how to utilize historic tax credits and new market tax credits and creative kinds of financing on older facilities in certain areas of town where you could apply for those funds. And so we took the old First United Methodist Church at the corner of 5th and Capitol in downtown Springfield, and which had been sitting empty for about 10 years. Okay. And I know you know some of the details about this. When we first looked at that facility, and we didn't own it. Sure. We didn't invest in it from the standpoint. We invested some pre-development dollars from the Q5 initiative in this project, but the basement was full of water, probably 2 feet of water.
It was bad.
And, mold all over the place. Yeah. And so, but ultimately, through this developer, put together a financing package, refurbished that entire sanctuary into commercial office space, and the chamber moved into an occupied part of that. We leased the other part of it to another organization, and then what was the old Sunday school wing was redeveloped into 25 residential units. Yeah, if I remember the numbers right, 16 of them were 1 bedroom and 9 of them were 2 bedroom.
It's nice.
It is a beautiful
every
project.
Time I go in there, it's beautiful. It's nice.
And Peerless helped with the remediation of the mold. Yeah. Not really through our connection, but O'Shea was the manager of the project.
And then was Chamber involved in the 186 studies?
We were. So early on in my time there,
District 186 is a public school. Yeah,
we were
all the remodeling.
Yeah, we were. We understood the importance of the educational system as you're hopefully attracting new people and new business to a community, and so the district asked us if we would be willing to do kind of a business owner and leadership survey of what their thoughts were about the educational system, District 186. And so we took, it was probably a year-long study that was done, from looking at the finances to looking to the academic achievement, so on and so forth. And a couple of recommendations came out of that study, one of which was to do a facilities study of all the facilities in the district. And under Jennifer Gill's leadership, they did that. Yeah. And today we see a lot of cool things happening with
It's amazing what's going on with all that.
So that would be another that would be another thing that we did during the time that I was a part of the chamber team, that I think we're still seeing the implications of that today in the community. And then, our focuses when I was there were advocacy, leadership development. The Leadership Springfield program that the chamber does every fall is second to none. It is off the charts, a great leadership program. 14 weeks, every Thursday for 14 weeks. Yeah. Just a fantastic leadership program.
And was that a newer program?
No, that program had started 30 years ago. Gotcha. We did some revamping, and we added to it. We made some changes to it. Yeah. Many of which were things that had been suggested by members who had participants in the program year after year after year. Yep. And then we held a lot of events with the idea of those events being places where you could have all the right people in the right place at the right time to make strategic connections and relationships to get business done in the community.
Nice.
Right. And so we really focused on the advocacy, the leadership development, and then, of course, those events of doing that very thing. So
Nice.
And you have to ask Mike Murphy. I think we left when I left there. I think the chamber was in a pretty solid place.
Yeah, I think it was.
I think Mike Murphy was the perfect selection, though, to really focus on the advocacy efforts, given the fact that he had just been a state representative.
Absolutely.
And he was a small business owner prior to that. So
Yeah.
couldn't be somebody better, I think, to take the foundation that was there and build on that.
Yeah.
So
that's terrific.
Yeah.
And you were there for 8 years?
About 7.5.
7.5,
Because on June 27th of 2021, you called me and asked me if I would be if I would come meet you at the Office Tavern for lunch.
Yes, you did.
And I thought, this is different, even though we got together all the time.
Right.
But I knew my intuition.
Yeah.
In fact, I knew walking in the door, my intuition was he's going to ask me to come work at Peerless.
Yeah.
And he did that day. He said, we can't do it right now. We got to get some things in place first.
We had to get you an office.
That's true.
And triple insulate the walls because I knew it was going to be next to mine. And I was going to have phone conversations. And his inside voice is most people's outside voice.
That is true.
Well, you share an office with him.
I do. Yes, I do. Yeah. We always joke around with Steve, and I were like, I don't even know why when he has to have a confidential conversation why he even shuts the door because you can hear it, you know what I mean,
exactly.
from outside the main office.
You've noticed that usually when I have one of those, I either get in my car and drive around or I walk around outside on myself.
Yes.
Well, tell them about your job description and how the meeting went down that day.
Yeah, so
and the 3 things I asked you to do when you came to Peerless.
So if I remember correctly, and I'm sure I do, I said, so what might this look like? And you said, well, first of all, help us grow the business, number 1. Number 2, look around all the corners and find all the stuff I've screwed up for the last 30 years and fix it. And then number 3, and most importantly, I've spent all my life trying to raise Matt Wyke. Would you take Matt Wyke and help make him a productive part of the Peerless team and a productive
project,
citizen?
as you can tell.
Yeah, the most challenging part of the 3 for sure.
Exactly. I own that. All the things are about fixed. Okay. The business is growing, and then we got old Junior over here. It is a work in progress.
Who's making great progress.
He sure is.
Yeah,
I agree.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate that.
But it's
a two-way street. Effort on your side. Yeah, for sure.
It has been. I remember the day after being here, maybe 3 or 4 months, and you said, "Well, I was going to give you a year to settle in, and you're up to your eyeballs in all things Peerless. So would you just take all this stuff?" And I said,
the thing
"Sure."
that I think I was so impressed with, because you really had no marching orders, and it literally was that, right? Fix the things that I've screwed up over the years, and just grow the business and be Chris Hembrough at the end. And you have done that, and I think I was maybe 4 or 5 months in. I was just looking around, and I just think that you as a leader, you would come to me and just say, "I know you don't like doing that. Let me handle that." Or, "Hey, Brad, let me handle that." Or, "Hey, you know what? I've gotten through all the employees and I had conversations with everybody." And the old legal pad came out. And I'm like, "Oh no! I hope it's not more than 3 pages long." It's like 5 or 6 pages long of things that you had written down that you had found out or identified that maybe didn't necessarily align with our core values, and I think who you knew I was or we were as an organization. And I thought, he's spot on and all those, and he started chipping away at it. And I think that a lot of our folks were like, "What's he doing here?" Right? And
who is
I think
this
there was
guy?
probably a
What is
lot
he
of
doing?
whispering, and when I wasn't around, that what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And I think within short order, 6 months, less than a year, people really embraced the process and what you brought to the table, and it's been awesome.
Well, and because of his leadership, I mean, he truly leads from the front. Like, I'll give a perfect example. It was about this time last year, and we're slammed with all those broken pipes and everything. And it's about 11:30, 12 o'clock, and we're at the school that had flooded. Huge pipe bust, and here comes Chris walking in. You know what I mean? What are you doing here? But I mean, he's out there on the field, humping equipment in, doing what everyone else is doing. I mean, what he talks about, he does, and he lives. And I think that's why he gained everyone's respect so quickly.
Yeah.
No
question about it. Are you having fun?
Today or this
today.
is a little uncomfortable.
I know. Are you having fun?
No, I absolutely love it. I have said to many people that have asked, so how's it going? You've been there a couple years or whatever. And I have been really fortunate. Anything I've ever done professionally, I have not just enjoyed it, but I have loved what I was doing.
Sure.
But I can honestly say nowhere has the experience been quite like this one. No, none of them have risen to the level that this one has, and that's just reality. I mean, I absolutely love what I'm doing. Are there days?
Oh, yeah.
You know, where I want to bang my head against the wall.
Yeah,
for sure. You have those days everywhere.
Oh, yeah, for
you know, this whole the grass is greener is.
Right.
You know, it is not greener anywhere.
No, it's not.
And folks who think it is.
Yeah.
And I have, you know, again, back to that thing about being open to new opportunities. By the way, when I left the chamber to come here, I had somebody who's an acquaintance, probably not a best friend, certainly, who said, you know, about every 7 or 8 years, you need a new challenge, don't you? And I said, I've never really thought about it that way, but there's probably some truth in that. The itch to, I love to problem solve, and I do love a challenge. I mean, it's the competitive nature, I guess, that's in me. But I have loved everything I've ever done. But no place like this.
That's
really.
Awesome.
That is the truth.
And we have been having fun. Just, you know, we work hard like we talked about earlier. I think we were talking with Steve Oliver. Was that work hard, play hard, have fun? Because he even said it. And you don't think about architects having fun at work, but that's important. You know, because the business that we are in is the most inconvenient. It can be a real pain in the you know what. You know, calls come in at midnight. You have to cancel family plans. Sunday afternoon when you're going to maybe go hang out with your family and you get a broken pipe at one of your clients, you're out there. You're out there because that's who you are. You made promises and you're going to make sure they get delivered on. And having fun, I think, is extremely important because this business can grind on you, you know, if you let it, you know. But,
and to your point, like last Christmas, I mean, none of our people.
Right.
I mean, everybody on the Peerless team was out all day and night on Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day. And
spirits were high. Everybody was, you know, rocking and rolling. It was fun. Absolutely.
It was a lot better than this Christmas.
I know. It's too warm out.
I agree.
I know. No question about it.
My Christmas was awesome, but it was just like night and day. We were talking about that yesterday. Last year on December 26th, we had more jobs than we knew what to do with. And it was a ball.
It was.
Doing the work. And the best part about it is the rewarding nature of the work that we get to do. A lot of times folks say, so what do you guys do? And I always say to people, if I had to sum it up in a few words, is we help people put their lives back together. I mean, when we go into a commercial facility like we did throughout 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks last year because of all those broken pipes, or into somebody's home. People are at their most stressed moment. Their largest asset is in jeopardy in one way, shape, or form. And we get to walk in the door, and it's not always a great circumstance, but help people. And whether it's 3 days or 5 days or 3 weeks later, things are put back together.
Agreed.
In life, there's a sense of normalcy again. And that's really rewarding.
It is. And one thing I was also going to say before we get to the question that we ask everybody, because I know you'll have some good insight on that, is that, you know, you brought this leadership leadership class, if you will, to our organization, and just to see how some of our folks have really grown and embraced that, these Maxwell books. Talk a little bit about that, or have you had training in facilitating leadership classes? Because it really has brought our team close together. And you know, and give me a chance to really understand our people where I may not necessarily talk with those folks very often.
I don't know that I've had any formal training to do that, but it's something I've always done most places I've been. There's something about getting people around the table and talking about and wrestling with leadership concepts and ideas and values and characteristics, and one of my all-time favorite books is the John Maxwell book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and I think we're certainly aware that for many, many years, Mike O'Shea has been hosting an emerging leaders group for years. And each from various companies around the community that will send somebody to be a part of that, probably 30, 40 people, I'm going to guess, if I remember correctly. And every week the folks in that group read a chapter.
Yep.
And what O'Shea does is they bring somebody in from the outside each week, a different person, to facilitate, make a presentation and facilitate a conversation around the content of that chapter. And I've done that on the sacrifice chapter for them for years.
Okay.
Love doing it and have seen the difference that study itself has made in the lives of a lot of people that we all know in the community. And so it just makes a lot of sense.
Makes sense.
And I think sometimes there's got to be balance between this leadership development stuff and our day-to-day work. Right. Obviously, if we're really busy, our work, do emergency services, so it has to be done. It has to be done now.
Yeah, agreed. We've canceled a lot of
meetings. We've canceled many. But because the work needs to be done and the customer needs to be served. Yeah. But when we can offer folks an opportunity for personal and professional growth, and that's what it does, I believe, in the midst of their work environment, there's something unique about that. And then I think we've all said it, just getting all of our folks in the room, those 12 or 14 people around the table that participate in that, there's something that happens to your culture as a result of that.
I agree.
That I remember when we were first driving over to do the very first one, we didn't know what to expect.
No.
I thought I did, but you never know for sure. Yeah. But it's contributed to I think some significant growth for various people, beginning with me, because I'm challenged by every week.
Yeah. Well, I know it's been nice for me. Matt's my son, obviously, but even hearing what he has to say when he shares, hey, who's your hero?
Yeah.
And it's Andrew, his son, or his brother. It's like, really?
First meeting.
I know. Well, I was like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was the very first
one
we ever did.
That was the very first one,
yeah. Or who do you look up to, or whatever it was.
Whatever the question was.
But I thought it was pretty cool. But, okay, so one last thing before we get to the question is talk about your family. Hannah, my favorite. So when we first met, she was, 7, 8 years old? And you call me almost every day on the way to school, and she, hey, big dog, Oh, yeah. So what's Hannah doing these days?
Hannah is in nursing school at Illinois State University. Doing well. She works at Memorial Hospital when she's not over the summer, and actually comes home some weekends and works there as well.
So you have 4 kids, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Very good.
Janelle and I together have 4. So Hannah is there. Luke is in his 3rd year at Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville in nursing school as well.
Cool. And I got the chance to work with him last January.
He came in and worked for us.
Sharp young man, and fit right in with all the antics around here, the whatever it is that we do when we're in the lunchroom, jacking around with each other.
And then Emily just graduated from Illinois State.
Okay,
and she is in the process of interviewing with 3 or 4 local companies right now.
Oh, cool.
Literally. I suspect sometime in the next week or 10 days.
Awesome.
She'll be at one of those. And then our oldest, Brittany, is here as well. She is with HSHS and does executive and provider recruitment for them. So
that's awesome.
Very blessed, fortunate, and we love the fact that our kids are all still fairly close to home. We get to see them and be around them and spend Christmas, with them. And
then the one that keeps it all running in the right direction, in the right lane, Janelle.
Absolutely.
Tell us about Janelle.
Yeah, well,
because keeping you in line would be that. I don't have to spend 8 hours a day with you usually. You know what I mean?
That's a whole nother version of the podcast. We just
need to
bring
have her
her
in
on.
here.
I would say besides my faith. And the birth of kids, the best thing that's ever happened in my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It is. She,
she's a good one.
She is
special.
It's funny. One of her good friends, Denise Mishkel, says that Janelle's a female version of me, and I'm a male version of her. That we are cut out of the same cloth.
Well, that's awesome.
And we probably are in almost every way. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, you said it.
Yeah.
And then,
I don't even know.
Yeah, you just said it. What advice would you give yourself, say when you're, 25, 30 years ago, yourself today, what have you learned over all, because you've done a lot, right?
Yeah.
So you played football at the highest level, won a national championship, started a church, grew it to 2,000 people or whatever. But I mean, that in itself is an accomplishment that somebody could look back if they did just one thing. And then, you know, the non-for-profit, and then you bought a business and sold a business and made money and got the note paid off and you know, raised kids. And so what would you tell yourself?
That's a great question, first of all. Probably more than one thing. First of all, relationships are everything.
Yeah.
I mean, they are everything.
Yeah.
Family and professionally.
Yeah.
I mean, every great thing that's ever, and I don't think I would have said that 30 years ago.
Sure.
But every great or good thing that's happened in my life experience, personally and professionally, happened through a relationship or a set of relationships.
Yeah.
So certainly that. I think I have learned over the years, it goes back to what I said maybe a little while ago about the best time to consider a new opportunity when it comes your way is when you don't have to. I think I have learned to enjoy where I am. And early on, I was always striving for what's next, kind of a thing. But I think over these last, especially 15 to 20 years, I have learned that, hey, enjoy where you are because this life goes really fast.
It sure does. We're not guaranteed tomorrow.
No, I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And so I've learned to make the most out of today. Now, that's probably a big downfall of mine because I don't know how to quit anything.
Yeah, right.
And so I just will grind and grind and grind. And sometimes a lesson I still need to learn is it's okay to just stop sometimes.
And just chill. That's cool. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Well, that's great advice, too. As me being a young guy, you know, I'm always thinking about the future, I feel like. And it's like sometimes sit back and look what you have going on right now and enjoy it.
That's right.
You're also not guaranteed tomorrow.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. Well, and that's the one thing that I said earlier is that, you know, when we talked to Steve Oliver off the camera, I said, you know, it is a daily intentional act for me to not think about next month, next week, you know, reviews, what trainings we're going to, and live right here, right now. Yeah. That is a big challenge for me. And so, I think it's great that, that'd be great advice.
Yeah, and I think the only other one I would share that is probably, well, it's really important, or it's helped me grow as a person, even though I still have a long ways to go, is have a couple people in your life who you give permission to speak the truth into your life, even if it's truth you don't want to hear.
Yeah, amen. That's good. Yeah,
and I think I've told you before. I have had a good friend. He's passed away now. But when I was 32 years old, because I could be kind of intense about stuff, and I forget about size and volume, and that makes it more that way for people, or at least I've been told that.
Yeah.
And he used to remind me regularly, especially if I was dealing with a difficult issue. He used to always say, "Hembrough, you don't always have to use your number 10 hammer. You can use your number 1 or your number 2. And he was right. I'm still learning that today. But I think to have a couple of people in our lives who, and you've been one of those for me. You were intentionally one of those people.
Oh, well, likewise with me. I feel the same way about
into our lives that we need to hear, but we don't want to hear.
Yeah, amen to that. Well, I would say this, wrapping up. You have a big personality, and you are doing big things in your personal life. And I mean, this is just the beginning with Peerless. You're doing big things here. So thank you for what you're doing and what we're going to be doing in the future. It's been a shit ton of fun.
Yeah, it has been fun.
Yes.
And I've had a lot of fun with this interview too.
Maybe not.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I much appreciate it. Thank you.